Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is approach. Let's take a look at some of the definitions or ways that we use this verb. The first way you might hear approach used is to mean to come near or nearer to someone or something, either in distance or in time. Right? So, for this first definition, we could talk about physically moving closer to, again, something or someone. But you might also hear this verb used to talk about the time, right? Let's pretend we're watching this video in the afternoon and we might say, oh, it's approaching 3 o'clock, right? We're getting close to 3 o'clock. It's just another way to convey that same idea. A second way you might hear approach used is to mean to come close to a number, a level, or maybe even a standard in quality or in quantity. So, lots of ways we could talk about this, but for my language learners, I was just having a conversation with a student, and I told that student that she is approaching an advanced level. So she's almost, based on her test scores, at kind of this high or higher level. So she's moving from intermediate to advanced. She's very, very close, maybe a few more weeks of studying, and then she'll be ready to be at that level. A third way you might hear approach used is mean to speak to someone for the first time about some topic or something. And many times this is being done to make some type of proposal or request. The way I've heard this used quite frequently is in nonprofits. So, nonprofit organizations need donations, they need funding to continue their service work. And so many times they're going to talk about, like, well, who could we approach to help support this program, right? So, what's a person or another organization where we could ask them for money? You should know that approach is a regular verb. To make the progressive tense, all we need to do is add ing to form approaching. Our past tense and participle forms of this verb are going to be made by adding ed. Our base verb, approach, ends in an unvoiced ch or ch sound. So, this means that our past tense ending is going to make a T sound as we say it. It should sound something like this: approached, approached. Okay? Now, there are two phrasal verbs that we should discuss. The first is to approach about. And this phrasal verb is going to be very closely related to that third definition we just discussed. So here it means we're asking someone about something, and sometimes we might be doing it in sort of a cautious way. Like we're a little nervous to ask this question. An example of this might be, how should I approach our supervisor about taking time off? Right? So here I'm asking someone for advice about how do I ask for time off? Maybe I'm new at this job, or maybe the supervisor or the manager makes me a little nervous. And so I want to think about this and ask my question in a good way, or in a way that's going to make my supervisor say, yes, take the time off. A second way you might hear approach used is the phrasal verb approach with. This can mean that we're starting to deal with a topic, an issue, and we're going to handle it in a particular way. So, an example here: we must approach the students with compassion and understanding. Now, I this sentence came to me as I thought about sort of the pandemic, and at first, I think many people were like, well, we still have to cover all of the material we would normally cover, right? I need students to do this, this, and this. But then we had students who were still sick, or students who had family members who were sick, and there was kind of all this craziness. So I had a supervisor say to a group of teachers, We need to deal with the students with compassion and understanding in this particular way. Now, let's continue using our verb of the day in a couple different ways. Today, we're going to practice the imperative and the present perfect. Let's start with the imperative. The imperative is another way to say a command. So it's unique in English because we don't have a stated subject, right? We don't start our sentences with you, he, she, they, or any names, things like that. We can start the sentence with our verb. And that's because our subject is implied and it's either you singular or you plural. Okay? So I can start the sentence just with the base verb, no special endings, and tell that person what to do. Now, sometimes that can feel maybe a little too direct for some people. So you can always soften things or make your sentence a little more polite by using the word please at the beginning or please at the end. So let's take a look at an affirmative example. This is something maybe a manager or supervisor might say to staff that they're training to work with customers or clients. So an example could be approach customers with a smile and a positive attitude. So maybe we can imagine being in a big store, and maybe you've had this experience where a worker, someone comes up to you and says, "Do you need any help? Can I help you with anything?" Something like that. So that worker is going to walk towards you. They're going to get closer or nearer. That's why we're using the verb approach here. Um, if I want to make a negative imperative sentence, what I want to do is start with do not and then use the base verb. So again, my subject here is implied. So if I want to give someone a negative command, I might say, don't approach the wild animal. Don't get closer. Don't get nearer to it. It's a wild animal. It could bite you. It could attack you. Now, let's take a moment to look at the present perfect. We can use this verb tense to talk about something that happened in the past, but at an unknown point in time. We might also use it to describe something that started in the past and that continues into the present. To make the present perfect, I need two parts. I'm going to start with have or has, whichever form matches my subject. So my subject is I, you, we, or they, I'll use have. And if my subject is he, she, or it, I'll use has. And then I want to use the participle form of the verb. You can see that in my first example. The Regional Transit Authority has approached county officials about expanding bus services in western suburbs. Okay. Another sentence I borrowed from the news. So this particular organization has gone to county government to ask for more money, to ask for more funding so that they can expand the busing options or busing services in this particular area of the county. Now, if I want to make a negative present perfect sentence, I need to insert not after the have or has. And then that will be followed by the participle form of the verb. You can see that in this example. Current COVID case counts haven't approached the peak seen in the winter Omicron surge. Okay. This, while a negative sentence is a great or exciting one to me, so this is going back to that second definition of approach where we're talking about reaching a certain quantity. So here we're talking about COVID cases, and we're saying really they're not getting close or to that high peak we had just a few months ago, right? Thank goodness. Finally, let's look at making a present perfect sentence or present perfect yes or no question, pardon. To do that, we're going to start with have or has, whichever form matches our subject. The subject comes next, and then we're going to have the participle form the verb. You can see that in has she approached management about a contract extension? So this likely goes back to that third definition about making a request. Here, she's going to ask, can my contract be extended? Can I continue to work with this organization or on this particular project? Now, let's spend a little time looking at some words that are related to our verb approach. The first word we're going to look at is just the noun form of this word. So, same spelling, same pronunciation. The noun approach can be used to describe a way of dealing with something. An example of that might be, do I need a new approach to teaching verbs? If you're a regular viewer, you might be slightly bored with these videos by now. If you're new, this might seem interesting. Or maybe it's just not effective, right? Maybe I need a new way of teaching this material. Feel free to make a comment if you do want to see something a little different. A second way I could use the noun approach is to refer to the act of speaking to someone for the first time. So again, that goes back to the third definition of the verb. So an example here, she made an approach to get to know her fellow students. So maybe we're talking about a new student. And so for the first time, she's going to begin talking to some of these new people that are in her class. A third way you might hear the noun approach used is in relation to flying. So, this is part of an aircraft's flight in which it's going to descend or get lower to the ground, and it's sort of preparing itself for landing or to land on a runway. So, an example of how you might hear this used, the plane is making its first approach to the runway. Right? So sometimes, due to bad weather or maybe other planes, one might think it's getting ready to land and have to sort of circle around, go again before it attempts to land a second or third time. So that's why you might see a first, second, or third approach. The next word we're going to look at is the adjective approachable. Generally, we use this to talk about a person or people, and we're saying that someone is friendly, they're easy to talk to. So we might be able to connect this to that second definition of the verb or the second definition of the noun here. So speaking someone to the first time for the first time, or someone you don't really know very well, but if you still sort of feel comfortable doing that, then we can use this adjective. So an example that's very personal to me is that I strive to be an approachable teacher. I really want my students to ask me questions, to feel comfortable going, what? Your explanation didn't make any sense. That's okay, right? I want them to see me as being friendly and easy to talk to because I think that's going to help them learn. It's going to help them continue to come back to class again and again. The last word I'll leave you with today is the noun approachability. So this just means that we're referencing sort of a capability of being approach. So an example here, approachability is an important element of healthcare access, right? The idea here is that we want someone feeling comfortable asking questions, making appointments, accessing medical services. If they don't feel sort of capable of doing those things or comfortable doing those things, then they're not going to be getting medical treatment, and that can make many conditions and illnesses even worse in the future. Thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.